Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Thank you. How's everyone doing? How are we doing? We're doing well. Yes. Listen, can everyone hear me okay? I am absolutely honored to be here to lead this next conversation. It's going to be featuring a number of people you have probably seen and heard from before, but I promise you never like this, not like this, all together in one room at this point in our nation's history when the whole is greater and much more powerful than the sum of its parts. The women you're about to hear from have each lost a loved one to police violence. And in each case, their loved one was killed by an officer of the law. In each case, their names have become hashtags, the world has come to know them, and then the list continues to grow. Also in each case, these women have taken their anger and they have turned it into advocacy. And we're going to hear a lot more about that, how they've taken their pain and turned it into power. And they do that so that other families won't have to endure what they have. So you're going to meet them all together here in a moment. But first, I want to welcome to the stage a man that they and you have all come to know very well, especially in the last decade. He is a civil rights attorney who's been at the forefront and on the front lines of fighting for these families and many others in the wake of police brutality. He has won multi-million-dollar settlements in those cases. He's organized marches. He has pushed for reform at every level, local, state, and federal. The Reverend Al Sharpton actually dubbed him Black America's Attorney General. Please join me now in welcoming to the stage civil rights attorney Benjamin Crump. So we are going to talk about all of those things I just mentioned, and then we're going to invite some more people up on stage here to join us. Before we get going, this is something y'all are going to want to pay attention to. You may have heard, you may have seen in the headlines about this incident at Sesame Place. 2 young girls who were snubbed by one of the characters. A number of other videos have surfaced since then, and there is ongoing discussion about how this is going to be addressed. Mr. Crump, I understand you have a couple of special guests here today.
I do. Thank you, Amna. We have Jody and Tamika and my co-counsel, Beverly Marr, who are representing their beautiful 6-year-old daughters, Skylar and Nyla. And we want everybody to know that we stand up for our children, and we will continue to fight for our children. Our children's lives matter. Thank you, Rock Nation, for allowing them to be spotlighted and loved as they should be.
I think they should probably come up. Everyone wants to hear more from them than they
are so beautiful.
do from us. It's so nice to be here with you. Thank you. Thank you for joining this conversation. We're going to kind of take a big look right now where we are as a nation, and you've talked about this a number of times. You've always said that you fight in 2 courts. First in the court of public opinion, and then if you get lucky, you say you get to fight in a court of law. So I want to ask you about public opinion today. At this moment in our nation's history, we are 2 years after the murder of George Floyd, 2 years after unprecedented marches for racial justice and ending police brutality against Black Americans, not just here, but worldwide. Where are we as a country right now when it comes to public support?
I think that we are now more than ever entrenched in a battle to make sure that all of our children have a chance at equal justice. Because since George Floyd was killed, we have made a lot of progress, but yet they keep killing us. So and I know I'm speaking to the choir here at the Rock Nation Summit, but the choir has to sing louder. I mean, we have to say more than ever, we have to go stand up for our children, speak up for our children, and fight for our children's future. We have to use every platform we have. I mean, Roland Martin, we have to have all Jay-Z platforms, all his artists, his angels of justice, Desiree and Danya, do more now than ever, because it seems to be that now that we got justice for George Floyd, they say everything equal. No, we still have work to do. We still have a lot of work to do.
Is there historical precedence here you look at? When you look back to 1963, when you look at the weeks and weeks of marches, how even back then in the limited polling there was, they did see the further away you got from the marches and the public calls for justice, the further down public support went. Are you worried about that happening here?
You know, I'm not in this sense. Two important things. Number one, I have to thank all of you for being great co-counsels as we fight in the court of public opinion. It is because of you all that we got a historic victory in George Floyd case. It's because of you all we got a historic victory in getting justice for Ahmaud Arbery. It's because of you all we got a historic victory for getting justice for Dante Wright. So we're making progress, and that's because you all are using your voices. So keep using your voices. We are winning this battle. And Amna, I have to tell you, don't ever get dismayed, because as I look at Oscar Grant's family, I think about how before 2020, you didn't have the Justice Department prosecuting police officers that killed our people unjustly. But think about what they're doing now, Kim Fox. I mean, they have brought dozens of civil rights criminal charges against police officers. That has never been done before. Kristen Clark at Department of Justice, this sister is really going out and saying that we're going to hold people accountable. So that's the first thing. And the second thing, just briefly, don't get dismayed. You all have to be students of history. In 1964, when we passed the Civil Rights Act, and then in 65, when they passed the Voting Rights Act, they then had a study in 66, and they said, well, nothing changed in the electorate. The same people that we elected before was being elected now, even though the Civil Rights, Voting Rights Act had passed. But 10 years from that, in 1975, because they passed the Voting Rights Act, they had an unprecedented number of black mayors get elected in major cities. They had black United States Congress people get elected in record numbers. I think, Roland Martin, they said it went 500% more than they had before the Voting Rights Act. That meant they had maybe one before. After that, they had 28. So don't ever let them tell you that what we're doing don't matter, because it matters.
Change takes time. Change takes time, right? Well, I think we should bring some more folks up on stage. What do you think?
I think that would be a great idea.
I am so excited to bring these women out here, y'all. Please join me now in welcoming to the stage Gwen Carr, mother of the late Eric Garner, president of the ERIC initiative. Also behind her there is Dr. Tiffany Crutcher, sister of the late Terence Crutcher, the executive director of the Terence Crutcher Foundation. Behind her there, I believe, Allisa Findley, sister of the late Botham Jean and president of the Botham Jean Foundation. Also with us is Michelle Kenney, mother of the late Antwon Rose and director of the Antwon Rose II Foundation, and a very special guest also joining us. We're honored to have her, Dr. Bernice A. King, CEO of the King Center, daughter of the late Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King and Coretta Scott King. Thank you all for being here. Please have a seat. Thank you so much for all being here today. I'm just going to start with this because we had a planning call. We were all on a Zoom call together a few days ago. And I have to tell you, the relationships, the community, the sense of family amongst all of you was palpable. Everyone was saying it was like a reunion when you were so looking forward to getting together again. I can't wait to see you. Ms. Carr, start us off here. Tell me what it's like when you're all together. Tell me about this community.
Well, first of all, this is really a group you really don't want to belong to, because to belong to this group is something that's very tragic has happened to us. So, but now when we are thrust into it, then we become a sisterhood. We relate and we talk with each other, we call each other, anything that's happening, and then we have events, we go to each other's events, and we become just like family, and we are family because of what happened. Because no one, if you're not in this club, you can't really understand the feeling that, the tragic, the anxiety, the grieving that we go through. But when we call each other, if we're having a bad day, we do have our bad days, we have our good days, then we have our dark days. And on our dark days, sometimes you just want to stay in bed, pull the covers over your head, and that's okay. Sometimes that's what we do. But afterwards, we have to fight. And when we fight together. We get encouragement from each other. We get embracement from each other. And that's what the sisterhood is about. And a lot of times when we're together, we don't focus on the tragedy. We all know the tragedy. We love on each other. We conversate. And if we talk about our children or our brothers or sisters, we talk about how funny they were, how silly they were, and what we remember most about them. So, it's a bittersweet when we get together.
Thank you for that. Dr. Crutcher, what about you? What do you get from this group?
It's just really comforting to know that you're around people who's been through the same thing. And I would be remiss if I didn't just shout out a lot of other sisters and brothers who's lost their loved ones who came to support us. They're in the audience right now. Yeah, if you all would please stand. Tatiana Jefferson's sisters, Jamel Roberson's mother, the Monterosa sisters, Michelle and Ashley, they're here. They came and flew from all over to support us. That's what this is really about. We understand each other, and it's a beautiful display of community. And, Ayanna Presley said that the people closest to the pain are closest to the solutions. And so we made a decision that we would not rest until we got justice for our loved ones. And so Allisa and I, she'll call and say, let's go knock on the doors of Congress and make them hear us. And we've done that over and over again. I remember being in meetings with the members of Congress with Valonis Floyd and Mrs. Carr and Allisa, and we sat at the table and we cried for help because we wanted them to do what was right, because our loved ones' blood is on that George Floyd Justice and Peace Policing Act. Our loved ones' blood is on the ballot box. And so we've come together to really activate our power collectively to really disrupt. And so I'm just glad that people understand what I've been through personally.
Allisa, you mentioned on that call, and this stuck with me, it turned into just a conversation, and you turned to Dr. King at one point, and you just said, but how do I do that? We were talking about moving from anger to advocacy, and it struck me that even in this moment, you need that guidance, you need that support. Tell me about how you get that from this group. What do you seek from everyone up here?
Well, I like to speak with families that have been there before me. I lost my brother in 2018, so I like to reach out to persons like Ms. Carr and Tiffany and Dr. King that I met on the call, because this year I'll be 4 years in, and I'm still angry. So I want to know from those who have been there before, what do they do with that anger? I know for me, I've been trying to channel my anger into purpose. I have advocated for the Botham Boulevard, the street renaming where Botham lived. We have the Botham Act in Texas, which makes it illegal for police officers to turn off their body cam during an active crime scene. Thank you. But as a big sister who wasn't there to protect her brother, I still feel like it's not enough. So I'm holding on to my anger, and I know it's not healthy. So that's why I look for advice from those who have been through this before, because yes, we're doing good with it, but we are still grieving families. So that's why I like to get advice from those who have been there before me.
And Dr. King, I'm going to come to you for that advice in just a minute. But first, Michelle, what about you? Or when you hear Allisa say that, does that resonate with you? Do you understand what that is?
Absolutely. Everyone up here knows that on the call that night, I was really considering backing out. A lot of people look to us for inspiration and motivation, and they think we got it all together. And most of the time, we really don't. We're figuring it out as we go along. So the support system that we have, like through Rock Nation and the UJC, we call them a lot. I know I do. I do. Probably for the pettiest things, because sometimes I get myself in situations, honestly. But once we were on the call and everyone was talking and Allisa posed the question and Dr. King answered, what this group gives me is the motivation to move forward. I look towards these people when I'm trying to figure out what I want to push my legislators to do, how much I want to irritate the DA in my district, how much I want to call the U.S. Attorney's Office. I'll go see what Ben's doing. I'll see what Alyssa's doing. I'll see what Tiffany's doing. And I'm like, okay, well, Allisa called the DOJ. Let me call the DOJ. Or Rock Nation just filed a lawsuit. Let me go see if I can do that. So a lot of times we need one another. And as much as I hate to say it, I always pray that no one else joins this club. But I'm grateful for the people that were in it before me, because they keep me standing every day.
Dr. King, I heard you on the call that day, but I would love for you to say this in front of everyone here. We're talking about anger to advocacy. You have been sustaining a multi-generational legacy of that advocacy. And I can't imagine how much that is to carry every day, but what would you advise to these women? How do you move from anger to advocacy, and how do you sustain that over time?
First, I want to thank Rock Nation for the work they're doing in this area and providing this opportunity for these families. So let's give it up for Rock Nation. God bless Ben Crump. God bless you for all the work you're doing. Let me just say this at the outset, because I said this in the call. A lot of people don't know, for our family, James Earl Ray did not kill our father. We did a civil trial in 1998 and discovered that it was a conspiracy of a lot of different entities that involve our federal government and local law enforcement. So what we discovered is it was law enforcement who assassinated our father. So I wanted to put it in context so that people understand that we're in kind of the same shoes in a different way. For me, I was 5 years old and didn't quite comprehend a whole lot at that time. But it was exacerbated because my uncle was found in his pool dead a year later. We believe it was connected to what he knew about the assassination because he was with my father on that day and night. And we just celebrated the 21st in memory of his death back in '69. I was 6. Then in 11, my grandmother was shot in church. So that's a lot for a little girl back then. I mean, because those kind of things were unheard of. We didn't have other people. We had a unique set of circumstances. So who would we go to? I thank God that you all have each other. Not that you're in the club together, but that you have each other, because that's the important part of this. My mother helped us keep it together. The things that she sowed into our lives, the teachings that she lived and that she talked about. And I tell people those things that she gave to us were very important because they're fertilizers for my life today. They help me to stay focused in the work that I do. But I went through years and years of anger that turned to bitterness and rage. And things happen, you know, I don't want to say it so much publicly. And I realized I had to address that because for me, the anger was destroying me. You know, the object of the anger didn't even know. So I was being destroyed and poisoned inside. And so I had to figure out how to turn all of that around. And so what I say to people today is, number one, they are all very early on. My dad's been gone 54 years. I'm 59. I have to deal with the pictures, obviously, all the time, on the balcony, in the casket. I mean, just the reminders of the, you know. But it doesn't mean I don't still have that emotion, because that's a human emotion. The Bible even says, be angry and sin not. So it's okay to be angry. I want to say that first. It is okay to be angry. Don't try to run away from anger. Do what you just said, which is to continue channeling that anger into something constructive. That's what you have to do, because again, it hurts you and damages you more than whatever the object is of that emotion. And so, you know, that's the best advice I can give to my sisters, and continue to look to each other. But I also say, I heard about in which panel was it? Not the last panel, the previous panel, the first panel. There was a discussion about investments. There needs to be investments made so that families that go through this can get the necessary counseling that they need. It is so important. I'm telling you, as someone, and my mother did the best that she could. She got us checked out when it first happened. But you know, she was building a legacy, so we didn't get that early on. I had to get it later on. And they need that kind of investment individually, not just group. I mean, some of the group is good, but that's what's going to give them what they need in the process. And it's multifaceted, as we know.
Mr. Crump, Dr. King raises an incredibly important point here, which is there are so many more families who go through this and who don't do what each of these women up here are doing, which is lean into it. Relive it in many ways. Talk about it repeatedly. Show up again and again, many, many times by your side when you are responding to other instances of police brutality. Now, you can deliver the message in a certain way, but I'm curious, is the message coming from them that much more powerful because of the messenger?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I was just shaking listening to Bernice talk about what she had to endure and how it's a journey, it's a process to change that pain into power. And you watch it in family after family as they find their voice. I think about Trayvon's mother, Sabrina. She could not say a word when we did the first press conference. But then you look at her now, and I see that in Gwen and Tiffany, Michelle, Allisa, and certainly what Bernice has done to change that negative associated with probably one of the most famous assassinations in history into one of love and trying to transform. That's the goal. That's why I'm so thankful to Desiree and Jay-Z and Danya, because you need an organization that will say you're not alone. And that's the most painful thing. They kill your child and then you're by yourself. We have to stand with them. And so, yeah, their voice matters. When they say it, people listen more. That's why you have the families talking in interviews. The lawyers set the stage, but the families have to deliver the message.
Ms. Carr, you have been a leader in this space now. They look to you for advice and guidance, and so many others do too. And I wondered that we're talking about moving from anger to advocacy. For you, was it quick? Did you know right away, I have to move into this position of speaking out? And does it trigger you? Does it make you relive that trauma every time? Because you show up. You show up every time fighting for other people's families too. What was that transition like to becoming an advocate?
Well, actually, I was thrust into it. It wasn't something that I planned to do. It's nothing that I thought I would ever do. But when my son was murdered, it just, I just thought I would just go in my bed, turn out the lights, and just wait till this horrible nightmare was over. This has to be a nightmare. This is not real. But it was never over. A nightmare you can wake up from, but I never woke up. So it was real. So I just used to pray a lot, and I used to ask the Holy Father to please show me what I should do. I don't know what to do, because when things like this happen, the devil gets big up in you. I don't care how religious you are, but when something happens to your child, we step to action. They done took my child away from me. So one night, it just seems like I heard the Lord's voice saying, well, what are you going to do? You're going to lay there? You're going to lay there and die like your son? And if you do that, who is going to hold up his name? So at that point, I says, I'm going to turn my mourning into a movement. And I turned, my sorrow became a strategy. So now I says, I'm getting up out of here, I'm going to fight, but I'm not only going to fight for my son, I'm going to fight for everyone. I don't want this to happen to another person out here. So that's why I'm all over the country. I'm here, there, everywhere. Wherever I'm needed, I will go. And where I have been, I've been places that I never thought I would go, seen things all over the country that we're in states I never thought I would be. And with that, I have gotten laws changed. We got the Eric Garner anti-chokehold bill passed. We got Governor Cuomo to sign the executive order for the special prosecutor, which what that does is when our children are killed senselessly, our unarmed children, it takes it out of the hands of the local DA and puts it in the hands of the state attorney general. And I've been on several other bills. It wasn't easy, because it wasn't like I went up there and I said, Governor Coleman, we want you to sign this bill, and he did it. We had to use, me and other New York mothers, we had to use strategy, even taking makeshift coffins and put them in front of Governor Cuomo's door. We did a lot of things that we stepped out the box to do, but we got it done. And now, as of last Saturday, I got the street named after Eric that he was killed on. So thank with the work. I mean, it wasn't me alone. There was other people. There were council people, and like Ben Crump. He been beside ever since this happened to me. We became friends, and he's always there. And when I call him, most of the time he answers the phone.
Most of the time. That's on the record.
No, but he's good. He's good. Him and all of his constituents. I love them. They always, as he said, they always answer the bell, whatever I need. Okay, but I'm just thankful for this group. This group has helped me, and they call us the mothers of the movement, but there are tens of thousands of mothers of the movement. We are the face of the mothers of the movement. We represent, but those other mothers are hurting just like us, and they need support just
Yes.
like we do. And that's why I always have a event every year and bring as many mothers as I can to the event so that we can love on them. And some mothers are not at the stage that we are. And some family members are not at the stage where we are. And so that's why we love on them, embrace them, and empower them to where they may get to that stage. And they are so appreciative of that sometimes. Not the household names that you always know, but mothers and sisters and brothers that you've never heard of before. And this is what you have to do. When you get a platform, you must share it.
Thank you, Ms. Gwen.
Allisa, what about you? Tell us about your path from anger to advocacy. Is it a path you're still on?
Yes, I'm still on that path. The path started really to occupy my time because my brother was my best friend. And anytime I was driving or he was driving, I would get a call from him. So when he was killed, there was just silence. So I started researching how to start a nonprofit, you know, what needs to be done to really fill in that silence. And it turned into something where I met with Tiffany Crutcher, and I met with Michelle and other sisters like Ashley Carr, I saw in the back, where we have that same goal. So we work together.
What's the name of the organization?
I started, well, with Tiffany and some other co-founders, Sisters of the Movement, where it's a coalition of sisters of police brutality victims, because I needed support on a sister level. I needed to speak with a sister who lost a sibling, and so they know exactly what I'm going through. I mean, I will never understand the pain of a mom losing a child because I haven't lived that, but I have lost my brother. So I needed someone with that same experience where I could call and scream and cry or whatever, and they just get it. So that was something else that we started. I started the Botham Foundation to continue the work that Botham started in his short 26 years on Earth. And we still have a lot of work to do. I don't think we'll ever be done because, let's face it, racism is alive and kicking. So every single day we have work to do. It doesn't end just because the cameras go away. It continues. And every single one has a part to play. Not because I lost my brother or we lost someone doesn't mean that it's all on us. Even though you didn't lose someone, you have a part to play. You could vote. You could call your council members. You could call your senators. Everyone can play a role in changing the narrative, changing policing, changing racism. It's all on us.
Dr. Kenney, Lisa talks about the work, and I want to ask you about that. Let's talk about the work that's going on now and that needs to be done. You talk about the difference between cooperation or coordination and collaboration. It doesn't seem like there. Sounds like you've talked about this before. Tell us what you mean by that. What's missing from the work right now?
Well, this is Bernice's interpretation, because it's going to be opposite of the dictionary, just in my observation. But before I say that, can I just say that what has made this moment or these moments so powerful is the posture of these families. You know, when my father was assassinated, there was riots all over this nation. And if my mother had allowed the anger to flare up externally, then it's no telling how much more riots would have extended in this nation. But because she took a different posture out of her faith, what I hear is a lot of spiritual groundedness here. And it doesn't mean that they don't have their challenges, but because these are God-fearing women, in most instances it's been women, it's men as well, fathers and brothers, etc. This has been so powerful and what has kept a lot of this alive, and we cannot forget that, because had any one of them turned another way, I don't know where we would be as a nation today. So thank you all. In spite of your pain and in spite of the hurt, and it's all different, you know, what we've experienced, it's all different. But you don't know it, but you have made a tremendous difference just by having that kind of posture. And so I just want to continue to encourage you. For me, as I look at the landscape, I see a lot of people working together, collaborating. But what seems to be limited is the coordination and the collaboration. And what I mean by that is, I'm a preacher, so I'm going to bring up a scripture for a minute. In the book of Nehemiah, when he looked at what's going on with the walls of Jerusalem, he called together the leaders and all the rest of the people, and he said, you know, the work that we're doing is extensive, and we're widely separated on the wall. But when you hear the sound of the trumpet, I almost want to say trump, come together in this place and our God will fight for us. What I mean by that is there is a word that Mother Carr just used, the word strategy. What seems to be lacking is the coordination around strategy, around timelines, around goal, around strengths. My father wrote a book, Where Do We Go From Here? Chaos of Community, in the chapter, the world, not the chapter, the warehouse, but in that book, he says, our nettlesome task going forward as we look at the challenges we face in the Black community and the things that we're gonna have to deal with is to discover how to organize our strength into compelling power. And I emphasize strength because many times it's passion that ignites us. But it's strength that is going to be able to create effective, long-standing change that has sustainability. And so we have to organize around our strengths. We got to think about what are the needs that we have, and then what resources do we need to align with those needs? Where are those resources? I'm talking about human and financial resources. Who is strong in this area? What is needed at this time? Because everything can't be done at the same time. It has to be coordinated so that it can synchronize together. And that's the way the movement happened with my father. And that's why they were able to break through in a lot of different areas. And so that's what I mean about coordinating the efforts, because it seems like it's a lot of little things going on that are great things. But if we can bring all of that together and coordinate it in a way that we know, okay, this may not work at this moment, let's interject this at this moment, and these are the strengths that we have, and this is the gap, and we need to fill that, because sometimes we have a lot of duplicative efforts, and maybe we need to combine those efforts. We need to learn from the world. In the world, in corporate America, they know when it's time to merge.
That's true.
You know what I'm saying? Delta is the leading airline because they understood that. And so we have to do that, especially in this nonprofit world. Otherwise, we dilute our strength and we keep breaking off into these pieces. And I'm going to say this and I'm going to say it loud. Sometimes it has to happen. But please, pray and think about before you start another nonprofit. And I'm not saying to my sisters here. Yes. Because sometimes we just need to align and figure out who's out there who has an area that connects with my strength and my passion I can bring my strength to. So that we can combine our resources for effective change and not just see the incremental change, but we can see substantial change.
Let's talk about that change. I want to hear from each of you on this, and I'm going to pick up on something I have heard you say before, Mr. Crump, in an interview about your inspiration about Thurgood Marshall, because he famously said, you know, where you see wrong or inequality, speak out, right? This is your country, this is your democracy, so make it, protect it, and pass it on. Yes. So I want to hear from each of you what you would say to everyone out here, what you would pass on to them about what you've learned of your strength, of your resilience, of the work you're doing, of what needs to be done. What's the message people here need to walk away with? Ms. Carr? I don't have to come to you first. You want a second? Dr. Crutcher, over to you.
You know, I've been vacillating with this panel and the direction and the narrative. Are we going to talk about inspiration and hope, or are we going to talk about the rage and the anger? And so I think I got it, Ben, because he's been really trying to coach me on this, but I really had to just think about the reason why I continue to press forward every day. And there's a little boy named Terence Jr. Terence's 10-year-old son. And Dr. King, I too have a dream like your dad, that one day Terence Jr. will be able to walk outside free, that he'll be able to play with a toy gun and not be executed like Tamir Rice, that he'll be able to just run in a neighborhood and not be executed like Ahmaud Arbery, that he'll be able to just sit on his sofa and eat a bowl of ice cream and not be killed like Botham Jean. That is the dream that I have for Terence Jr. And what really motivates me is that rage and that anger. And I've learned how to turn those negatives into positives. And so I tell people, you have to get mad. MAD means make a decision to stop participating in your own degradation and take action. That's what we have to do. And so, you know, I don't believe that God makes mistakes. He puts people in our life like a Rock Nation and a Desiree. I haven't seen her, but Desiree, oh my gosh, there she is. Whenever I call Desiree Perez, I don't care what it is, I don't care what time, she will respond. She will call me back.
Our angel.
And so I am so grateful that our paths cross and that you truly center our efforts and our work. When these cameras go away and the lights go off, they are there. You all don't know what happens behind the scenes. And we do have to pry ourselves off of the bed every single morning and put our best foot forward, because as Ben always says, there's 1,000 more Bothams and Terences and Eric Garners. And we decided that we would fight and we wouldn't rest until we got justice, just not for our families, but for families across this country. And so I stay focused on Terence Jr., and that's what motivates me every single day to keep pressing. But you all have to get mad. Make a decision and go to jury duty. Make a decision and get to the polls. Thank you so much. I think that fired Ben up.
Yeah. Go to
Michelle?
jury duty.
Go. Michelle, what's your message? What do you want to pass on?
When the individual that murdered my son by shooting him 3 times in the back at 17 years old while fleeing walked out of that courtroom before I did. Not only him, but his wife and his whole family got an escort out the courtroom while I waited. My city wanted to burn it down. They were literally ready to burn the city down. And I went to the media for the first time myself, no lawyer, no nothing, and said, let me speak to my city. And I pleaded with them not to, because my thought was, we can't burn this city down because we need to rebuild it. And all of those people that wanted to burn it down, I said to them, no way, we're not burning this down. We're gonna make this into what we want it to be. So we're gonna get on a bus, we're gonna go to Harrisburg, and we're gonna drop off 5 bills of legislation for police reform. We're gonna have a sit-in at the AG's office, which is our Pennsylvania Attorney General's office, so he hears us. And I just made a decision that all that negative energy that every person in my city had, that if I could just reach them and get them to understand that it's going to take all of us to make some changes, that we could. And we have. We have. And I just really want people to understand that there's only a few of us up here, but if you look at all the people in this room, if you just do a little bit, that little bit of change will make a difference. Like just, and that's why everywhere I go, I just ask that before I leave the room, that people understand that it is really going to take all of us. We can do most of the work, but it's going to take everybody in here, and it's going to take everybody in here to go home and tell everybody they know.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you. Allisa, over to you. What do you want to pass on?
You said what I want to pass on?
Yes.
I mean, a lot of these ladies already said the majority of what we should. Everyone has to do something. Everyone has a part to play. It's not just us. I mean, we're fueled by our anger and our pain, and we're trying to turn it into something positive. But like I said before, even though you haven't been in our situation, even though you haven't lost a loved one, it can still be you. So we need to do something now so that it doesn't happen to you. I never thought my brother would die the way he did, because he did everything to prevent interactions with police officers, but the police officer came to his home. We all have homes. We all go home at the end of the day and think that it's your sanctuary. So we need to start working now. We need to do something before it ends up being one of our family members, because you do not want that pain. It doesn't go away.
Amen.
So we all need to do something and do it now.
Thank you.
Ms. Carr, I'm going to give you the final word here in the couple minutes we have left. Last word to you.
Yes. I want to mimic my sister over here, like you said. When this terrible tragic happened to Eric, people came to me, I mean, many people I didn't know, they came to me, what do you want us to do? Just say the word, and we'll do it. And I told one young man, no, I says, I don't want any violence. Because first of all, when you create more violence, more of you are going to be killed. The police are going to kill more of you. And you know what his response was? They are killing us anyway. And I says, well, I don't want your blood on my conscience. And I don't want you to go out. I said, what I want you to do is stand with me and support me, you know, in what I do. And I want you to, anytime that you can go with me to legislate, you know, bring the crowd. And like we used to be the Garner Way Foundation, I decided to change the name to the ERIC Initiative Foundation. Make Eric's name, how do you say it, antonym, you know, one of them. but his name now stands for Eliminating Racism and Inequality Collectively.
And I say this all the time. At the end of the documentary, I said, the enemies of equality will not win. We will win. The precedent of black people in America is no matter what they throw at us, they cannot keep us down. We will win.
That is a perfect ending note. My thanks to all of you. Please join me in thanking everyone up here on stage. Ben Crump, Dr. Bernice King, Michelle Kenney, Allisa Findley, Dr. Tiffany Crutcher, and Miss Gwen Carr. Thank you so much.